Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Yusuf Aram. $6 billion. That's the reported value of a potential defense deal between Turkiye and Saudi Arabia. On Tuesday, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan met with his Saudi counterpart in Riyadh. They discussed everything from post-Assad Syria to stabilizing a region reeling from the Gaza conflict. But it's growing defense ties between Ankara and Riyadh that could potentially reshape the region, a prospect Washington is certainly keeping its eyes on. Alham Al-Husseini explains.
Turkey's top diplomat has visited Saudi Arabia multiple times, but his latest trip came with even higher stakes. Fidan's visit coincides with reports that Turkey and Saudi Arabia are nearing the final stages of a $6 billion arms deal. If completed, the agreement could reshape their defense ties and transform Saudi Arabia's military, equipping it with advanced weaponry, drones, and air defense systems. This growing partnership comes as Ankara and Riyadh put years of tension behind them.
The relationship between Saudi Arabia and Turkey is a great relationship. It's broad, it's very deep. We have many common interests, and we have, whether it's in the economic field, in the energy field, in the political field, in the military field.
During Erdogan's 2023 Gulf tour, Turkey's leading drone manufacturer, Bakir, secured its largest ever export deal with Saudi Arabia, a key U.S. ally in the region and a major arms importer. Currently, Israel is the only Middle Eastern ally of the U.S. operating the F-35, a jet Saudi Arabia has long sought but faces U.S. reluctance to acquire. With no clear path to getting the U.S. aircraft, Saudi Arabia may look elsewhere to acquire fifth-generation stealth fighters. The kingdom wasn't the only country denied F-35s. Turkey was removed from the fighter jet program by Washington in 2019. This setback fueled the rapid development of Turkey's fifth-generation fighter jet, KAAN, and the country's goals of becoming more self-sufficient in defense hardware. KAAN's maiden flight in February 2024 marked a pivotal moment, putting Ankara firmly on the map as a serious defense exporter. And now reports suggest that Riyadh could be interested in acquiring as many as 100 of the fighter jets. To meet rising international demand, production of the KAAN jets is also reportedly set to take place in Pakistan. This collaboration marks another chapter in Turkey and Pakistan's long-standing defense partnership, including the notable Milgem naval program. Fidan's visit is shaping out to be more than just a diplomatic mission. It signals a potential new chapter in military cooperation, where Turkey becomes a key arms supplier to Saudi Arabia. Could the KAAN fighter jet and increased defense cooperation signal a major shift for two U.S. allies that are looking to end their reliance on Western military technology? Ahlam Al-Husseini, Straight Talk.
Furthermore, joining me now from Doha is Dr. Ali Bakir. He's an assistant professor at Qatar University. Merve Seren, an associate professor at Ankara Yildirim Beyazit University. And from London, Afzal Ashraf, a visiting fellow at Loughborough University. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me now. Saudi Arabia, Türkiye, a very interesting bilateral relationship that could potentially shape the Middle East going forward. Ali, I want to start with you. You're in Doha. You follow Saudi Arabia very closely. How is the Turkiye-Saudi Arabia relationship right now? Has recent developments in Syria impacted it positively or negatively?
Thank you very much, Yusuf, for having me. Always a pleasure to be with you. I think the Saudi-Turkish relations are at their best at the current moment comparing to the previous times. I think that regional agendas of both powers are aligned on several issues. I think that they are pushing forward with their cooperation on the political, economic, and defense and security level. And in this sense, I believe that toppling Assad regime served the agenda of both of them very well, and I think that this will help them align on Syria moving forward, whether they both have an interest in stabilizing Syria, in rebuilding it, and in making it terror free and free of Iranian influence. Yet they have to deal with the Israeli occupation of Julan and other parts of Syria. I think that they are pretty much on the same page. They had several meetings, including a very big one in Riyadh. I think that both are coordinating very well regarding Syria and the regional issues in general. They are also pushing forward with an ambitious agenda on the military and defense level. Saudi Arabia reportedly concluded the biggest contract in the history of the Turkish defense industry when it secured a contract on Turkish drones, Akinci, and now it's opting for the KAAN Turkish fighters, fifth generation, very advanced fighter jets. So I think that all in all, the relations are at their best and they are moving forward in the right direction.
Merve, generally, Saudi Arabia, when you see these types of conservative Muslim governments coming to power, whether you want to call it conservative, whether you want to call it political Islam, they're generally concerned when they see this. But right now, they've been very engaging with Syria, and it seems to be that they're having a lot of dialogue also with the Turks about the future of Syria. What's different this time? Why is Saudi Arabia seem to behave differently than they have historically?
Because I think there's, in the theoretical perspective, we say that there's a small state behavior. So most of the time when we are looking at the small state behaviors, they are always, moving, or their behavior is always, very much compliant with the hedging strategy. So this is the reason that when we are expecting from a small state behavior, we only expect them to behave like a hedging strategy. But now all the small states, I think they are expecting more to engage in the regional politics and the global politics. So this is the reason that the Saudi Arabia doesn't want to be just only a facilitator, but it also wants to be a bargaining power, and it also wants to sit on the table with the other actors when it comes to the regional policies. And this is the reason that we are seeing a much more, active and proactive foreign policy within the Saudi Arabia, with the UAE and even the Qatar. So it's kind of a trend, not only in the Saudi Arabia, but it's a trend in the GCC countries, that they are leaving behind their small state behavior, but rather engaging more proactive foreign policies.
Mm-hmm. Afzal, when we see these steps the new Syria administration has taken, especially vis-a-vis Iran, a kind of exclusionary policy so far with the Iranians, keeping them out of Syria. How important is that for Saudi Arabia and the Turks, and is that something that can bring both of those countries together in Syria?
Well, I think if you ask the question as you have in those simple terms, we can maybe provide an answer. But I think we need to understand that in politics, as in modern warfare, there is a covert option and an overt operation as well. And what is happening in Syria at one level, certainly at the public level, is a popular revolution headed by a man who was at one stage allegedly number 2 in ISIS and a member of Al-Qaeda, who's now completely transformed into a very friendly and an acceptable leader. What I think we need to appreciate is this is not just about Saudi Arabia, it's not just about Syria and Turkey, it's about the global geopolitics in all of this. And it would be imprudent to ignore the fact that great powers, particularly the US and others, have their dominant interests here. So I think it's, for me at least, a little bit too uncertain, because we're not aware of what's going on behind the scenes, to be able to give a firm answer to this. We've got to remember that before the fall of Assad, the relationship between Saudi Arabia and Iran was becoming much more comfortable and friendly. The relationship between Assad and the other Gulf partners was becoming friendly, and now it's being recalibrated and not necessarily entirely out of choice.
Ali, there's also conflict in Gaza, recent ceasefire. Does the situation in Gaza also provide an opportunity for Turkey and Saudi Arabia to work more closely together? Is that something that might strengthen the relationship or hurt the relationship?
I think when it comes to Gaza, the situation is different because you have the dominant players are different in comparison to the Syrian theater. In Gaza, you have Israel, you have Egypt, you have the US, and mostly Israelis and Americans. They don't want a powerful and effective Turkish role in the ground. They don't prefer this. Also, the Saudis are a little bit, not directly involved in this matter. And the Israelis and the Americans might prefer other regional players to be involved, such as UAE and Qatar in the coming period. Having said this, I think that both Turkey and Saudi Arabia are coordinating their regional positions. There will always be some differences in some issues, but the most important thing is that they are aware that their common interest should prevail at the end of the day, and they should focus on the common agenda. That's why I say, and I here allow me to express a different opinion than the previous guest. I mean, Saudi Arabia has a big interest in keeping Syria away from the Iranian influence, and this is the same when it comes to Turkey as well. And this is one item on the agenda which pushed the two regional powers to align their interests and goals when it comes to the Syrian situation.
Okay. Merve, I want to ask you, when we look at what's happening in the region, there's obviously been a lot of turmoil over the past 2 decades, let's say. You have Trump back in office now. He doesn't want to see war. It seems like everything's calming down. It seems like we're entering a sort of a reshaping period maybe in the Middle East. Is that pushing Saudi Arabia and Turkey closer together, that they kind of want to work to reshape what the new Middle East will look like for the next decade or two?
The Turkey and Saudi Arabia have started to engage more in a stronger cooperation, and they are trying to, strengthen their bilateral relations. And it is actually what we see on the ground. It's the most concrete output of it. It's like the defense cooperation. We have got much more, stronger defense cooperation that is strengthening the Saudi-Turkish relations. So the thing is that it's a very good, motto for that. They say that it's like buying weapons, it's like buying friends. So the thing is that when we are looking at this defense cooperation between the countries, it is not kind of a military diplomacy, but it's also involving how these political ties and the traditional diplomatic ties are also strengthening. So even just with this joint production or the technology transfer, all these issues, it was showing us that it is not only deepening the military ties, but it is also deepening the bilateral ties between these two countries.
Afzal, when we look at the return of Donald Trump, you have two very important allies in the region for the United States, Turkey, a NATO ally, Saudi Arabia, a very important partner for the United States. Does Trump want to see this relationship grow stronger, or is the return of Trump from a more turbulent perspective bringing these two countries closer together?
Well, President Trump's behavior so far has indicated he doesn't consider bilateral relationships as important as, bilateral relationships between other countries as important as the bilateral relationship that he has with those particular countries. And his primary motivator in terms of establishing relationships between countries is financial. It is economic, and he has in his past time in government and already talked about the potential for making money from, in this particular case, Saudi Arabia through business deals. He's talking in terms of 600 billion, and he wants to round it up to $1 trillion. So a lot of that is driven by what he can maximize for the United States in terms of economic gain. So that's what's driving his relationship. Now, if the relationship between Turkey and Saudi Arabia, is one that, if you like, in any way threatens that relationship, then he will have a concern and he will not be very happy about it. And in this particular case, if we look at, say, the KAAN fighter, which is an important issue here, if that means that Saudi Arabia is going to put more of its money in the direction of Turkey and other areas for weapons purchases, that means that he is now not going to get the 600 billion that he thinks he's going to get or more. That might make his calculations different. How they will change, we can make all sorts of guesses, but it's very difficult to guess accurately with a president who does not have a consistent framework outside of economic losses and gains.
Okay, I want to shift the conversation to weapons and defense now, because we have an understanding of politically where the relationship is heading. Ali, $6 billion possible potential defense deals between Saudi Arabia and Turkey. What exactly is Saudi Arabia interested in? What type of weapons from Turkey's portfolio do you see as a priority for Saudi Arabia?
Well, mainly everything, but most recently, I mean, the focus has been going on KAAN, Turkey's indigenous fifth generation advanced multi-role fighter jet. And I think that the Saudis have several strategic, geopolitical, technical, and economic considerations to opt for KAAN. And normally, you would think that Saudis would opt for the F-35s. However, U.S. defense equipments are increasingly restricted for political reasons. And we should not forget that the U.S. priority is always to maintain Israel's qualitative edge in the region, which means that the Saudis would be on the waiting list for a long time, which is not very convenient for the Saudis. That's why this is the primary reason why KAAN fighter jet is very convenient from this perspective to Saudi Arabia. First, it's a very advanced fighter jet, and this meets the modernization plans of the Saudi Air Force. Second, it's maiden flight and reportedly going to mass production in 2028, which makes it very convenient for the Saudis and aligns perfectly with Mohammed bin Salman Saudi Vision 2030, which is very important from the Saudi perspective. And third, which is most important, Turks are reportedly open to sort of tech transfer and know-how, which the Saudis are looking for, since they are aiming to build their own defense industry and diversify their weapons imports. And there are several other considerations also. But all in all, I think that this makes the KAAN very attractive from the Saudi perspective, and both are discussing the possibility of Saudi Arabia either joining the project or acquiring over 100 fighter jet in the near term.
Merve, so both guests mentioned the KAAN, obviously Turkey's fifth generation fighter jet. Now, is Saudi Arabia just viewed as a customer? Is this something that Saudi Arabia could potentially be a partner in, maybe finance in the future? Also, I want to hear you talk a little about maybe air defense, drones. Obviously, Turkey has a wide spectrum of defense weapons that they can offer and many other military hardware. What else would Saudi Arabia be interested in?
Yeah, so the thing is that, well, actually, the Saudi Arabia is, partnership, policy. It traces back to its in 2030 Saudi Arabia vision, and if I'm not wrong, they declare it in 2015 or 2016. So they say that they are going to produce 50% of the defense production locally. So they also wanted to, produce their own indigenous system. So the thing is that what the Saudi Arabia has been in the last 2 decades is actually what Turkey has experienced during the 1960s and the 70s and 80s. Because the thing is that the Western suppliers, which the Saudi Arabia is very heavily reliant on, they are using this defense exports as an award or as a punishment. So this is the reason that we can just say that it's kind of a pulsation of the military sales. So this is what the Western suppliers are doing, most of the countries, with Saudi Arabia and the rest of the GCC countries. So what we have been witnessing within the 2010s, that Saudi Arabia is wanted to produce its own local systems, and it is trying to do it by localization and nationalization of this project. So the partnership is the best strategy to do this. So it is not just only KAAN, but they also, make contract with the Aselsan, with the Takniya program, and they also they are developing like anti-tanks rockets with the Roketsan, and also they wanted to be a partner with the Altay main tank, combat tank. So the things that there are so many other different projects they wanted to be a partner. Also even the GAMI, that we call it like the General Authority for the Military Industries in Saudi Arabia, it is the same of this SSP in Turkey, like the Turkish Defense Industry Presidential Office. So they're also cooperating with the Bakir, and the GAMI is also cooperating and making so many negotiations with the Bakir company in order to produce like the drone systems. So the thing is that the rule is that the partnership begins with the offset rules. So the offset rules are very prerequisite for the joint venture, and what the Western suppliers they do not promise is that the rate of the technology transfer is very low. So what the Turkey has got like a competitive advantage is that we are not, hesitating to give our technology transfer, or we are not hesitating to give like the training. And also we have got like, financial competitive advantage and the logistics and the partnership policies. And even we are not politicizing this Western sales. So we are not, putting like defense embargoes, or we are not, introducing like defense export regimes, like restrictions on the defense export regimes that we have been witnessed so many times. And so the thing is that just in one sentence, Turkey has experienced a lot of bitter experiences from the Western suppliers in the past. So we are not doing the same way that we experienced in the past.
Afzal, would these types of big ticket defense sales between Turkey and Saudi Arabia become a safety net for the relationship? Because we've seen the Turkey-Saudi Arabia relationship seesaw up and down over the past years, but when you're giving fifth generation fighters or other really big ticket items that have obviously maintenance, replacement parts, transfer of technology, does that lock in the relationship going forward? And could we see that expand into maybe joint military exercises or a potential maybe even military base in the future?
Well, it certainly could do, but I think the main purpose is not so much to tie people together, which will be a beneficial byproduct. It is to get rid of the inconvenient dependencies that exist. And I think some of them have been very well described by the previous commentator. The problem, I think, that hasn't really been understood is that when you have technology transfer and offsets in the form as we have seen in the F-35, where those countries that are members of the F-35 have a work share, and that work share means that a particular country produces a particular part. Even if it's a small single part, that country has the potential to prevent the development and the operation of the entire fleet across all countries. And we saw this happening during the Gaza conflict, where European countries could not put arms embargoes on the F-35 element and other elements where there was work share, because by doing so, they prevented supplies of those components to their own countries, to their own fleets. Mm-hmm. So I think while politically and maybe economically there will be a bringing together, my understanding and my expectation is that the KAAN project will, to some degree at least, aim to secure a degree of sovereign independence. So countries such as Saudi Arabia and Türkiye are able to exercise independent political and indeed military action without having the other partner in the relationship hold a veto over it. And I think it is to find a degree of independence from other great powers' ability to restrict your political and military scope for maneuver, that such programs, KAAN, etc., have the potential to secure a degree of independence. And I think it's an exciting time, and I think it's the first of many such developments, not just in Turkey, but in other countries as well, to give, if you like, a degree of military sovereignty.
Ali, Merve, Afzal, thanks for joining me. We're out of time. And that's all for this edition of Straight Talk with me, Yusuf Aram. If you got any comments, please share them with us on X at Straight Talk TRT. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you could find more exclusive content. Until next time, take care and goodbye.